I'll also start the recording. The webinar is now live.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll just wait for a few minutes before getting started. So just give us a minute while we get started. Hi, Pramath. Hi, Tristha. Welcome.
Hi, Nikhil.
Hi, Nikhil. Hi, Tristha. Thanks for doing this.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so I think we can get started while we have more folks joining in for the session. So good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us for the second session of Campus Charcha. After a successful inaugural event on the future of higher education, we're delighted to be back with yet another insightful discussion featuring India's top educationists. My name is Nikhil, and I lead student engagement and customer experience at Harappa Education. Through the Campus Charcha series, we hope to create a platform for higher education leaders across India to explore the future of learning along with emerging trends and challenges. So every fortnight, we'll have a leading educationist in conversation with Harappa's founder and chairman, Pramath, on a new aspect of the evolving role of learning institutions today. This week, we're discussing a very interesting topic, which is creating impactful learning experiences for the 21st century classroom. This is to understand how institutions can better build dynamic learning methods to promote active learning. We'll discuss how to meet the modern classroom's demands of teaching 21st century skills such as critical thinking, innovation, and creativity, as well as the integration of digital tools and techniques. And as someone who is passionate about the impact of learning, I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce our speakers today. Pramath is an entrepreneur, institution builder, academic executive, and philanthropist. He's the founding dean of the Indian School of Business and the founder and trustee of Ashoka University. He's also the founder and chairman of Harappa Education, a learner-centered online institution for behavioral learning. Tristha is the vice president of the CMR group and spearheads K-12 initiatives overseeing their state board, CBSE, ICSE, and pre-university institutes. She also founded Ekia Schools to bring pedagogically sound, research-based learning experiences to India. And I'm really excited to learn so much more about that. She brings in cutting-edge educational advancements through her exposure to the principles of Project Zero Classroom from Harvard University, inquiry-based learning from Reggio, Italy, and design thinking from Stanford University. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Pramath for the discussion, and we'll be back towards the end with questions. I request each one of you in the audience to post your questions for both Pramath and Tristha in the Q&A window. Thanks, and over to you, Pramath.
Thanks, Nikhil. Hi, Tristha. I hope you can hear me okay. I've been having some technical issues as we moved into our new office. So if somehow I blank out or you can't see me, just let me know.
Will do.
I think Nikhil already said it, but I'm also very excited to be talking to you today. And particularly because you almost, if I may say, are kind of the new generation of education leaders in this country. But more than that, I mean, there are a few young folks who are leading initiatives like the one you are leading. I don't know if I've met anyone who actually spans the space of, you know, primary education all of the way up to tertiary and higher education. And I think I'm really excited about seeing how you are putting it all together, as it were. especially because for a long time, I've always wondered, wouldn't it be nice if you could go tell a child or a parent that, why don't you come and just get educated forever? You don't have to worry about entrance tests and class 12 marks and admissions and so on. And I think there is a proposition like that out there. So I don't know if that's part of your strategy of how you came about to be now building a university, but I certainly think there's an interesting idea there, and it's surprising that not many people have done that. But anyway, I don't want to hog all the time, because I want to hear this from you. So if we could start, Tristha, by hearing from you what your personal journey has been growing up. And I guess your family was already into education as you were growing up. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that background and then your own personal journey as we get started.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here, Pramath. And, as little girls, I think most of us have spent time in front of a blackboard and an imaginary classroom. And really, that was me growing up. But I'm really glad I work in this space, and I've always dreamed of working in this space. My mother started a school with about 5 kids, and in our family orchard, guava orchard, in 1991. And people would make fun of us, saying, the amount of money you spend on the petrol to go to this orchard is way more than what makes sense financially for you to do this. But she built this organization that I work for, and today we have close to 20,000 students, right from kindergarten all the way to doctoral studies. And even today, she's operationally very involved. So I grew up watching my mother be a part of the schools and colleges and build it from scratch. And I thought there's no better thing to do and no better way to contribute to the country. So I've always dreamed of being an educator. So I actually talk about this a fair bit, that I tried every kind of education system. I did CBSE, I did the IB, then I studied in Singapore, then I studied in the US, and I studied in the UK. And I came back after my master's to do my to work in India, and I've been working in the education space for the past 13 years, and worked in schools, working in pre-university and now university. So that's been my big picture journey. Pramath, I think you're
Mute, yes. So this has literally been like for your mom, it's been exactly a 30-year journey.
Exactly, yes.
And you're saying from 5 to what? 20,000?
20,000.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a story. We have to get her next to be a guest on this on campus Charcha. I hope you're going to get her to record her journey somehow and write a book. I really think that there aren't enough books written by education leaders.
Yes.
And how they built institutions. And that would be a fascinating story. I don't think that there are too many women who can claim that role.
Exactly. And she would, when she would enter some of the meetings, she would be the only woman there. And she really had to stand strong. And a lot of stories from her, a lot of learning. And she really works from her heart and from her gut. And most of her decisions, she learned to be an educator in the process. She did her master's, she did her B.Ed, M.Ed, her doctorate while she was building this. So really inspirational.
Did she ever know when she was growing up that she would be doing this?
Right? No, she married my father, who was in the civil services. So she was a typical civil service wife, traveling around with her husband. And then when we came to Bangalore, she just wanted to do this. And my father supported her throughout.
Now, sometimes kids don't want to do what their parents are doing. So you clearly are in the opposite camp. So you always knew you wanted to go about it.
Yes. Since I was a little girl, I knew this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with students and teachers and make a difference, actually.
That's fantastic. Now, so where did this interest in these Ekya schools and a different kind of education and learning, where was that born for you?
So the first institution that was started by the group was a CBSE school. And
I
then
see.
we moved into higher education and then focused a lot on higher education. So when I came back in 2008, the mandate for me was to relook at the K-12 space and grow
I
our
see.
offering. And that's when I began working in the, designing a school system, a K-12 school system that could be scalable, that is progressive in nature. And that was a challenge I had to unpack and deliver on. So that's when AKIA was born. We
Mm.
decided to launch a new branding, also to stand for something new and progressive and different. And so AKIA was born. The first school opened in 2010.
So, Tristha, are you therefore saying that there was already a bunch of schools, and so you decided to come up with a new concept and a new brand
Yes,
within the group?
very hard call actually, Pramath. People would say, why would you do that? And we were associated with the National Public Schools. Uh,
Yes, yes.
and um, they are mentors. Dr. Gopal Krishna is a great advisor and a mentor, and he was also very surprised that I would leave two legacy brands to start a third new brand called Ekya. Neither CMR nor the NPS branding was part of it, and at that time it was a very very bold move, but I think it's helped in differentiating the learning and the offering. Now today when we look back, but it was a very conscious call to start a new brand.
And this has now been 10 years, right? You said.
Yes.
And so how many students and across all grades now, or?
Now in the K-12, we have around 8,500 students.
Okay.
Yes. And we have 4 AKIA schools and 3 schools branded under CMR. So total of around 8,000 odd students.
Yeah, so just help me understand. So this is the 8,000 students are all under AKIA and CMR.
Yes. But the functioning and the operational, everything is the same. We couldn't
I
change
see.
the names of the existing CMR, 2 existing CMR group, and the third one we started, for reasons of affiliation, we could not change the name, but they all
Sure.
run the same systems, processes, everything is, and the curriculum is also, sort of powered by AKIA on the back end.
So tell us a bit about what's the new distinctive element, and maybe also help us think through how did you think about, a lot of these initiatives tend not to be scalable, as you know. So there are lots of interesting experiments in schools, not just in India, but around the world. But it's just, one school somewhere with people are running with a small group of students. You clearly mentioned that you were thinking of scale from day one. So I'm always curious, how do you do quality and at scale? Because the general assumption is you can't do both.
Yeah.
So it'd be helpful to hear your experience in building quality at scale. And
That's
what was different? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question actually, because I have been thinking about it a lot, and it seemed like quality and quantity don't really go well together. And how do what kind of relationship do they share? So at AKIA, what we offered differently and what we built was a bottom up. We redid our curriculum from scratch, and we believe ourselves to be board agnostic. That we could be affiliated to CBSE, ICSE, IGCSE, irrespective of the board we're affiliated to. The learning still has to be benchmarked to international levels. That was one of the key target for us. So the way we looked at curriculum design was to see what 5-year-olds around the world are doing, what are 10-year-olds around the world doing, what are they doing in math, science, social science, and we redesigned the curriculum from there. So up until grade 8, we follow a common curriculum between all our boards. We believe that if we equip children with an ability to learn on their own, and we don't really feed them information, preparing them for a board exam they're going to see 10 years hence. A grade 1 child is going to see board exam in grade 10. We don't know what the board exam is going to look like. So why should we prepare them for a board exam we have no idea about? So we want to equip the children with the best knowledge, best skills at the time that is applicable to their age. And also the children that come to us, they live in Bangalore, educated parents. They're born with an advantage. So they don't need to be benchmarked to a grade 10 national level exam. That is an easy one for them. Our children have to be given an advantage in their learning as they've been given an advantage in their life. They're born with the best school education. So if we were to do that, then we have to challenge what the boards offer or the prescribed framework is there. Can we go a little beyond? Because our children have been born with an advantage, you should end with an advantage. So therefore, we redesigned the curriculum, we redesigned assessments, and the way we looked at redesigning it, we used the understanding by design framework. It's a curricular framework. We looked at math from Singapore, English from the Cambridge program. We looked at the science from the next generation science standards. So we looked at the best offering and we adapted and contextualized it to our students. And we made it very real for them. So they're very, very hands-on, very skill-oriented. So we're not as concerned as reading 5 pages in a textbook and saying, "This is I know what solar system is about." Can they really break it down? And can we look at the skills that we're honing? So that was sort of what we redesigned and redid, and it's very, very technologically integrated. And we have a central team that builds this curriculum out and continues to keep changing it, changing the assessments, changing the evidence of learning, changing what they learn, when they learn it, how they learn it, keep adapting it, because our first graders are better than what our third graders were when they were in first grade. So we have to keep
right. So a couple of questions. A lot of people assume that because you are aligned to a board, you don't have the flexibility to do anything beyond what the board prescribes, or even if you do, that flexibility is limited. But what I hear you say is that almost for the first, all the way up to grade 8, it doesn't matter as long as you're focused on learning.
Exactly.
And then are you then saying that beyond grade 8 is where you bring in a little bit of focus on the exam so that they don't actually lose out on that either? You do both during those 4 years.
Exactly. If you're expecting our children to write a board exam that is being written nationally by a child that might not have electricity at home, they're all writing the same exam. So our children already have an advantage living in Bangalore and doing all of this. So the 2 years is more than enough to crack an exam. You can crack, the IIS or any of the exams. It's like cracking an exam. So we align them to the board expectation and help them crack that exam.
And if you had to, sorry to interrupt you, but if you had to pick one example of what you do in grade 1 to 8, which people typically would not do in a school, what would that be, for example?
I think in science, for example, we do something called engineering design projects. So use a lot of, they combine, this STEM, they combine a lot of their, they are given a real life problem to solve, and they use their science design principles, engineering design principles to be able to crack a real world problem. And so we combine a lot of design thinking. If you see the way anything is solved, whether it is even to write a poem or an essay, you have to go through drafts. You have to test it with your audience. You have to understand your audience. I mean, solving a science problem is similar. Who are you solving it for? What is the problem that you're trying to solve? What are the iterations you're going to come up with? So, our first graders, our second graders, they're all really talking about brainstorming, ideating, and that's something that they do. And we're building a muscle of problem solving. We cannot expect them to be problem solvers when they're 22 and need a job if we don't build that muscle over and over again. So that's
so you are killing our market for Harappa because we come in when they are 22 and they haven't been taught problem solving, and we say, okay, we'll remedy that. But jokes apart, it's fantastic because essentially these are the skills that we teach at Harappa are all skills that people need to start learning from day one. And it's the reason we are even viable is because people have not been taught in the way that you're teaching them.
Yes, and because it is hard to teach that way, because the teacher has to go beyond the book and just to be comfortable with the unknown and allow the students to be comfortable with the unknown, and then really explore this concept with the students and problem solve and be open to different solutions and work with the students on this. So it's not routine, it's not factory like. So it is challenging for everybody involved.
We'll come back to this question about how do you even make the teacher equipped to teach in that environment, because I think that's something that's close to your heart, and I'd like to come back to that. But continuing on this theme of, it's very interesting because in a way what you are proposing is a common curriculum from grade 1 to 8. And you could almost call it the equivalent of the Gen Ed or core curriculum in higher education, which regardless of what you're majoring in, everyone needs to do. And then the 8 to 12 is more like a specialization or in the major, if you will, where in this case, it's your IB versus CBSE versus board or whatever, right? So on that theme though, what are the learnings from this experience that you are going to bring into this? Now, the CMR University project is also your baby, right? Which you are now trying to do differently, because you have been doing colleges and so on separately. So this is also another attempt to bring some of this new thinking into higher ed. So talk to us about that, and talk to us about what are the learnings from the school experience that you're bringing to the college experience.
So the CMR University project is a really exciting one because being in Bangalore, being in the middle of this startup environment, we want our students to go out there and problem solve and build new things. And in the school space, what has worked really well is we realize that when we focus on learning, the outcomes are, we're gifted with the outcomes. So for the first couple of years when we changed our curriculum in the school, parents were saying, you know, why are you, where are the textbooks? Why are these questions coming that I have no idea? My child doesn't know how to answer this question. It's out of textbook. And what we learned was it's okay to write that this phase of discomfort, because the outcomes, and we see the way our children are changing and evolving, and they're more confident, they're able to break apart a problem, they want to solve things. And now no longer are they looking at what is in the textbook, because we don't have textbooks actually. So what we have learned is to stay committed to uh, you know to solving students issues. What do students need as they grow older? And we call it the student 2036. We try to imagine, what is our student who's in grade 1 now, what is that student going to be in 2036? If we meet that child, what's that child going to be like? And if we stay committed to this intention of learning and teaching and getting the child to whatever the world might look like 20 years from now, 30 years from now, are we preparing the child? And I think that learning still continues in the higher education space. You know, are we delivering on the promise of getting our students and bridging their aspiration? And and if we stay committed to that, we will definitely achieve an impact. And the other learning has definitely been teacher support and ensuring that the mindset of the entire organization, and we equip everybody to deliver on that learning experiences in the classroom, because our teachers and faculty have not been taught this way. And doing that every single day at scale for thousands of students every day is the real challenge. And the success that we had in the school is to take it step by step. And it's okay if teachers make mistakes, but teachers, faculty, they're in the classroom because they're used to the unpredictable. They don't come into the classroom thinking that they can predict everything, because you're dealing with 60 dynamic human beings. So when they faculty want to be challenged, but it's about how do you take them along, how do you help them, how do you coach them in this process and make them really good in the classroom. So we're using that learnings also in the higher education space of how can we equip and support our faculty. So professional development is a very important piece for us.
So we'll come back to the professional development piece, like I keep saying, but could we focus a bit on on two things? First, why did you pick 2036, by the way?
Because we had done a retreat, actually, an offsite on 2016. And so we were 20 years from now.
I see.
2036. So we still talk about our 2036 student. We'll have to redo it further down.
Right.
Is very important to us.
And would it be possible for you to share some of the insights of what the student in 2036 needs or what their life is going to look like?
For the school space, what we're looking at is the ability to learn on their own, that they're not restricted by content, and it's about skills, so they're able to synthesize information on their own. They're able to problem solve. They're able to build hypotheses. They're able to communicate their ideas. So those are the kind of skills that we're mostly working on, and actually many of it Harappa covers in most of their coursework. It's really mapped out very, very well, and it's practically the same skills. But for us, we have distilled it down to even fewer.
Sure. And if you were to move away from the skills, what have been some of the learnings around engagement? And you were starting to talk about that. So I think learning by doing and learning through solving real problems is what you touched on with regard to the school education. That's how you brought in design and design thinking and so on into the. How are you planning to look at learner engagement from a higher education perspective?
It's definitely a problem that we are. It's a bigger one because when you're dealing with kids, not kids, but young adults above the age of 18.
And they have not gone to your schools. You wish they had already gone to your schools, right?
Exactly. So it is something that we anticipate is going to be a bit more challenging. But I think connecting with the student, and reaching them where they are, that's what we want to focus on. So we do want to not make our curriculum inaccessible, because we get students in our higher education space, we get students from all different backgrounds, and that is definitely a huge challenge for us. Neither can we give them a one size fits all curriculum, and then we get students from all over India, different learning needs. So really understanding our student body, categorizing them, addressing it piecemeal, bit by bit is some of the ways that we're thinking about it. But really connecting with our student on a not on an academic level, but as a student. What are your aspirations? We're here for you as a university, as your dean, as your faculty. We are here to support you in this journey. Now let's begin. Now, what do you need? And we want to be open to feedback, and we are putting things in place for us to have a very, very strong Office of Student Affairs that sort of is able to balance this academic and this pressure that the students might feel if they're not able to scale. So remediation, booster programs, bridge programs, we'll have to try everything, Pramath, actually. And we still might not hit our 10 on 10 for a long time, ever. So it's
no, but that it's certainly very very bold what you're trying to do. And obviously I think what you're talking about is having almost like a customized pathway for each student, that you're almost designing a program for each student. Again, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, in the higher education for the university, what we're thinking about, as you also pointed out earlier on the webinar, is we do have a common core curriculum that our students will go through, but there's a lot of choice we're giving them for them to customize it. We have a very key component called preparing for success, and that piece, we're talking about career preparedness, modules that they can choose. It's about knowing self. We're also mandating a community service component. We're also adding a lot of coursework, compulsory coursework on critical inquiry. Design thinking project is something they will do continuously, and we're encouraging a lot of interdisciplinary projects also. So we're hoping we're able to hone these kind of skills in addition to our non-academic engagement programs. But this foundational piece is what we're building out and launching for the next academic year. And we want to be able to then students choose their pathways between their mandatory and optional coursework to build their program in a manner that they might like and be mentored along the process.
Sorry about that. one of the challenges that you can obviously start to see in an approach like that is again the issue of scalability and how do you manage scale. You are right now just starting out, right? This university, so this will be just the first year.
The university already has 4,500 students per month. We have
Okay.
been functional since 2014. We were. We
Oh,
started.
so all of this is already implemented.
No, it is in sections, but for
Okay.
21-22, we're sort of realigning.
Sure.
Because the university has gotten very big, and through COVID, we were able to spend a lot more time designing the university curriculum. So we're realigning that, and
Okay.
that's what we're working on. So there are
I get it.
already 4,500 students who will continue in a
Sure.
different. They will continue in their regular mode, but with a few additions to their program. But the incoming class of 21-22
Incoming.
start experiencing the updated program structure, and then as we fine tune it more and more, the subsequent years will experience it in full.
And these students that are going to come in and experience this new structure, are they across multiple disciplines and schools, or what are their specializations going to be looking like?
So we currently have 7 schools. We're adding 2 more in 21-22.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the School of Legal Studies, School of Engineering and Technology, we have Economics and Commerce, Science Studies, School of Architecture, School of Social Sciences, and we are adding the School of Education and the School of Design coming up.
Oh, I see.
Management. So because we had a lot of colleges before, Pramath, we also folded them into the university.
Yes, of course. So that's how this aggregation of 4,000 students is working today. And in all of this, are you using any technology, or are you accessing any blended or hybrid modes at all? Because now you are obviously offering quite a range of subjects, I suppose.
Yes. For the next academic year, we are looking at a major tech involvement. We are looking at definitely the basics in terms of LMS and ERP and all of that we want to put in place. But our students are already, and they will continue to do a blended approach to learning,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be our MOOCs or
Sure.
Additional life skills courses and things like that. They will be doing a blended approach.
Okay. Now, talk to us a little bit about this whole issue of employability that afflicts all of us who are involved in higher education. My experience, for example, with Ashoka and liberal arts is that, of course, I'm all sold, and it seems like you are, and I think you've been educated in some of these institutions where you're taught to do a lot of what you were talking about with regard to schools and what you're trying to do at CMR, but then parents and students and employers are skeptical, and their view is, this is great for learning, but how do I make sure? So how have you been able to think about that and balancing that? And you mentioned some of that already, that you are getting them to think early about their career and who they really are, and connecting to that. But it'd be helpful to know a little bit more about your thoughts on how you're thinking about that.
This issue of parents and everybody talking about, all that's good, but where's the job, is very similar to school parents saying all that is good, but where are the board results? So at the end, we have something that we need to deliver on that is measurable. And for us, placing the student and having a job is a measurable outcome. That is extremely important to us. Employability is extremely important because we're serving the needs of students that come in with the aspiration of a job. Majority of our students do want a job more than being entrepreneurs or getting into research. So that's our audience that we're serving. So the way we're looking at it, Pramath, is all our courses, one is all the programs, but all our courses, we're going down to the level of why do we need to teach this? Why is it important? And if we are going to teach it, what is relevant to the student and to the employer? So that is actually the process that we're going through for the past 8 months, that we're re-looking at all our courses. And we have created sort of a panel that we call the Curriculum Advisory Panel. For every program, we have created this like a mini board of studies that's really looking at every course we offer and say, you know what, don't teach this. It's not important. I'll never hire them. And this advisory panel is people in the field, in the industry, who we are really taking their input to say, would you hire our student if they come out with this and they complete this course? So no, the university cannot be isolated from the real world. So it's really trying to bring, whether it's our coursework, whether it is industry-based projects, whether it is the interface of the industry with our students, them interacting with people out from the market, solving problems in a small scale that the industry might actually pose to our students. And we're increasing the number of internships our students do. And we're also adding this mentorship piece to our students. In UGC anyway mandates a mentorship model, but we're looking at bringing it in more tightly to make sure that our students are talking to adults who have worked in the space, whether it's the faculty members, whether they're in the industry, and we're hoping that by all of these initiatives, students understand themselves, understand the market, understand the gap between that, and then utilize the university resources to be able to bridge it as much as possible.
So some of this sounds really around very much the kind of activities that we at Harappa are doing to supplement universities and colleges that are not able to bridge this gap. And it does make a lot of sense. Interestingly, you haven't touched on the specialization angle at all. And yet you do have specializations with legal and business and so on. So that in itself is also isn't that also on account of employability, or are you busting that completely?
No, you're absolutely right. Even while they looked at the course level, they've also looked at the program level and redone the kind of specializations they would like to offer. So past 8 months, the team has been looking at what can we do, and we're only changing it for 21-22 incoming class. So the offering that class. So it's a very, we have time in our rollout, but we definitely have relooked at the kind of specializations and all the programs that we can offer. And some things we realized is irrelevant. We might not need to do that. And even in the way we've imagined we do it, we've had to sort of undo that.
Yeah, there's so much I could ask you because I'm very curious, and having been very hands-on in setting up institutions, I'd love to get to know more about what you're doing. So we should catch up separately. But I do want to come back to what I kept saying we will come back to, which is the teacher and professional development and teacher education and professional development. I know it's something that's close to your heart as well. So tell us about how you think about that, and what are some of the initiatives you've been taking? Because I also find that you can come up with very newfangled ideas, but you need people to be able to buy into it first and foremost, and your teachers and your faculty have to buy into it, and then actually be able to deliver it. In fact, one of the big learnings for me at Harappa was, Tristha, that when we first went to many of the colleges and universities we aspired to offer our courses to students, the administrators turned to us and say, hey, can you first do this for our teachers? Because only when they experience it will they realize the value of it and be able to offer it. And that was new insight. I hadn't gone there thinking that at all. Yes. But I'd love to hear your experiences about that and what are some of the things you are doing.
So what worked in the school space, Pramath, is to focus on our teachers. And that's really what's helped us deliver the curriculum. So if I were to look back and say, what did we do in year one in our curriculum rollout? And where are we now in our curriculum implementation? The success is only attributed to the fact that our teachers and our teams have been able to adapt and understand the intent of what we're trying to do. We don't understand why we're doing it, and we just give them lesson plans to do it. It fails. So what worked was teacher goal setting, helping the teacher understand that it's okay, you cannot be perfect in the classroom, but you have to get better, and teaching is hard work. And we do that through individual one-on-one teacher coaching. and helping teachers in a lot of professional development. And we give teachers a mandatory piece of professional development and then optional courses they will need to do, optional workshops that we conduct in house. So we have a massive PD team, and um, professional development is very, very close to my heart. I really believe that because teaching is so dynamic and so hard, it's just hard work. I think we completely underestimate the success of our students by underestimating the success that we need to give our teachers. So, what we are implementing in the university also is a very structured professional development coursework that our faculty will do. That is, whether it's induction or ongoing PD, and it could be technical, non-technical, and a lot of the difference between school and higher education is that in higher education they're not trained to be teachers, they're not trained to be instructors, they're trained to be PhD in a particular area. They come in with a lot of knowledge, but how do you handle an 18-year-old? How do you motivate an 18-year-old? How do you build connection? Those are things that are much finer, and a first grade teacher will do it very easily, but she might not have the content level of the science level that might be needed. So these are different challenges but very similar. So a lot of coaching, a lot of goal setting, giving them curriculum and resources that they can begin their journey. So, can we give them content so they don't have to go searching for it, and help them curate that course a little better by providing more and more resources. So these are some of the things that we're doing, and the School of Education that we're launching off this academic year is also offering a MA in education. We are very excited. MA education only for, it's a residency type of model that we're building out, and it's meant for teachers to enter the classroom, and that's it. Not into research, not into anything, just teachers for the classroom. And how do you train teachers?
So that's just a residency program for training you to be a great rock star teacher.
Absolutely. It's a master's program that we do. 1 year is coursework. The second year is coursework plus you are based in a school for an entire academic year. So you see end to end how a school functions as an academic institution, and it's a residency program. So it's like an apprenticeship model.
And this is only for school teachers, though.
Right now we're doing for school because higher education, there's still so many moving parts, and school is a little bit more stable at this point. So definitely looking at school first, and then we want to offer for higher education faculty members. And because a lot of these modules we already have in-house, Pramath, we've built it. We have it in the mode of workshops, we have it in the mode of blended coursework. So whether they do a master's degree or our faculty member go through it, either way, we'd want them to experience this learning.
So do you have a bunch of master trainers kind of people, or people in your faculty who are really masters who train others, or both?
Yes, we have both. We have a PD team, and we're building this PD team out. That team sort of hosts all the coursework, all the material. They help others be great facilitators. And we have our existing leadership members who are really good at particular areas and components of supporting teachers. And so we have now about a menu card of about 200 plus PD courses that we can run, because we've been doing it now for 13 years. So we have just courses for teachers.
So what are your goals for I guess I don't even know which organization to ask, or for everything you oversee, the CMR University, as well as the EKIA schools, 2036, what does this whole configuration look like?
I think my goal is to be really known for learning, and that no matter what, our students can learn, and they have the ability to learn on their own. And so that means everything else, all the other skills are being focused on, and we'd like to be known as technical as a doctor would, who do an operation on you. That's the amount of effort we put into technically designing learning, and that's what we want to be known for. That we just are not hacking our way through. We're understanding how the heart works, where it gets pumped, which instrument to use, where to cut, how long, how long is anesthetic, everything. It's as scientific to learning, the approach that we take, as a a doctor might take or anybody else might take. We want them to look at everybody to see that education is that much work and learning is that hard to do.
You know, what you said is very inspiring, and I'm more power to you. This is not the end of the interview, mind you, but what you just said is very inspiring. And I tell you, it resonates because you've mentioned this a few times that, teachers have to work very hard. That's not easy in the classroom. And your analogy to a heart surgeon or heart surgery is almost uncanny. I talk about this often when people come to me and, they're at the fag end of their whatever career they are pursuing. And they'll say, listen, I'd love to teach. And can I come and teach in one of your institutions? I'd love to spend time with kids or younger folks, and I want to pass on my wisdom to the next generation. And I often have to kind of punch their enthusiasm a little bit and take the wind out of their sails a little bit by saying, listen, what makes you think you can do this? Because you can't become a heart surgeon tomorrow just because you have a heart disease, or just because you've had education. You can't just become a teacher. It seems that you have a lot to give, and it's great that you have this, but please understand that this is a whole profession. And just that, law is a profession, and race car driving is a profession, and heart surgery is a profession, so it is to teach. And so it requires hard work. And I don't mean to discourage people. And I say, listen, you want to do the hard work to prepare and train yourself. And literally apprentice, that's another word that you use. Then you have a hope in hell of actually making an impact in the classroom. Otherwise, it's not going to be great learning. And I would not inflict you upon our students.
That's so right. So right. Now, everybody thinks they can be teachers because they've been with teachers or they've been taught in their life before.
Yes.
And it is completely different. And
Yes.
today's classrooms are very different. And what we should aspire for is it's very different from what we've ever been through. So,
yes. And it's hard enough, I feel like when you bring in the kind of ideas that you're bringing in, if a teacher themselves have not experienced that, then their context is just not conducive to what you're talking about. You almost have to inject them with new ideas without them ever having any experience to relate to. And that's just it's hard for us to expect that from people.
Yes, this is a long haul journey, and in our recent offsite, we talked about this. We said we are running a marathon, and by doing a offsite and a strategy meeting, we just bought our shoes, and now we're going to wear those shoes, and then we're going to run a little bit. We're going to try, and then we're going to have shoe bites, and then we're going to, it's such a long journey. When are you going to finish a marathon? And then when we finish marathon, we'll say, okay, now maybe we have to do a triathlon, right? So it's
yes.
we will never get to a place where we say, that's it, we are done, we are the best, we have achieved something. It's never going to stop because we're dealing with our products, our people. Where does that end?
My team beats me up for analogies, but you come up with good analogies. So I'll extend your analogy. I was almost thinking that you're already running the marathon and you're saying, let's change shoes as we are running, right? And we can't fall and we can't slow down because we lose out on time. So this is the whole sort of American analogy of changing the engines while the plane is flying, right? It feels a little bit like that. And that's harder to do because remember when you started Ekya, and I noticed that also, your strategy was let's start a new brand and a new set. So it's almost easier to do that than to transform an existing institution, which seems to be what you're trying to do with the CMR University.
Yes.
So it's in a way a little bit of a bigger challenge.
Yes. But the staff that are already there at the university, and I've just found everyone to be extremely positive. The leadership team is aligned to this, and it's not going to be easy, but I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting.
No, of course. What an exciting challenge, and how what great opportunity for the staff, and especially when you have somebody like you driving that, you see a lot of times these initiatives come up, but if they don't have buy-in from the top, then they fizzle out, or they happen in pockets and not really across the organization.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But I think a lot of people don't realize that given where we are as a country, we are very lucky to have the opportunity to experiment and do things afresh. And while we all berate our institutional systems and the government and regulations and so on, frankly, there's a lot of room to innovate.
Exactly.
And people don't realize that. On one hand, we are over-regulated. But the good news is nobody is actually actively regulating us. So you can go out and do things without worrying too much about the regulation. In terms of, talk to us a bit about technology and how do you see that playing a role in the next, 15 years or 36, 16 years, 15 years. Yeah, I got that right.
I mean, you can only dream, Pramath, actually, because right now to keep the system running, and I'm sure you're aware of this, any university or school system needs 50 to 20 platforms on the back end to just keep afloat, right? A curriculum mapping platform, a teacher coaching platform, an LMS, an ERP, a communication platform, student engagement platform. It's just and in the schools actually we are only using platforms from the US. We don't have any Indian players that we're working with because we found them not to be adaptable and built for education per se. And I think going forward, we'll have to be able to give more and more choice for students to build their own pathways and really open out. And COVID has done that for us, really opened out their access to people they can learn from and the type of things they would like to learn and when they'd like to learn. So I think a lot of this technology is going to be used for that in higher education. We want to really promote that and really break the barriers on location and just within their faculty members. Can we really broaden where the university stands, not just here? But I think that's what 20 years we'll have to be looking at. And a lot, and I feel very strongly about data, looking at assessment data, and that is the only way we will know where each of our student is. So we have the outcome-based education that is very idealistic, very big picture. In schools also, we do something called standard-based learning, and this thing about personalization cannot happen without data. And really map student journeys. Where are they? Is this child on creativity? If that's an important outcome, where is this child on that? Can we have enough evidence through 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to say this is where the child is and therefore he needs additional support here and he doesn't need coursework in this? So can we use data in that manner and technology in that manner? That seems very seamless in the way we collect data, the way we interpret it, the way it's showcased to faculty members, decision makers, students themselves, and to then be able to make choices. I think that's
very powerful. Very powerful. I completely agree with you, and that has been our experience in experimenting with technology and data at Harappa as well. It ties very deeply into assessments, learner progress, measuring outcomes. And previously, I think if you look at the kind of data we are getting, it would seem that today's scoring techniques and the dependence on sort of the good old tests and quizzes is almost like a vintage car compared to today's jet engines, right, or jet planes. So I think there's a lot of interesting work and insights, and I think that's at the heart of that personalization and customized journeys that you're trying to build. Very exciting and very insightful. I just want to say that as we wind up, we have a very enthusiastic associate professor from Portsmouth University in the UK who's joined us today, Professor Ala Garad, and he's been making some very kind comments, and it's great to have you with us today. He's originally from Egypt. But we do have a question, which is actually a question that could take us hours, from Jacob, which says, can you explain NEP in brief? Now, that's a question in contradiction, because NEP is like such a major document. But any particular highlights from the NEP that you would like to bring up, Tristha, that struck you?
I think the NEP is so broad. It's so it is very progressive. It's everything that we want our education system to be. I think the implementation is where the challenge is going to be, Pramath, and um, both for school and higher education is really focused on students and making sure their needs are being met, whether it is the intention of the curriculum, whether it is employability as they talk about it, multiple exit options, um, whether it's faculty development. I think they talk about a lot of these things. How do we really take it and put it in place, see results, and then make decisions on those results? I think that's where the proof of the pudding really is. And
Yeah, I agree. We've had so many policy statements in the past, and if you are changing shoes while running your marathon, this is like changing shoes of millions of marathon runners at one go across the country with so many institutions. I think you saw the next thing in the chat, which is about building attitude. And how does one build attitude? I think obviously you want to start young, but any thoughts on that?
So it's about building a mindset. And for us, we are continuing to reduce the number of things that we want our students to be able to do. And by that I mean, people say they should be kind, they should be sweet, they should be compassionate, they should be, I mean, the list is endless. We want them to be everything. So the what's worked for us and what we're doing for the higher education space also say very few things. What do we want them to think and do? Very simply, and really build our entire culture, everything around our systems around um, building that attitude, whether it's in staff, everybody should embody that culture components. Um, so it's if you're having event, if you're having assemblies, it's about how we open a class, um, how we look at praise, how we look at affirmations. If being compassionate is important, then we have to give multiple opportunities for that to happen. The attitude of contribution and impact should be very high, and everybody should embody that. And I really don't know. I mean, this is a very, very hard one. It's hard to measure, hard to do, and it has to be embodied right from the top to the bottom. Everybody should believe in it. They should stand for it, and most important, we should be authentic in it. So it's really looking at every touch point and saying, if that's important to us, is that touch point embodying this attitude of ours? Because if students see it and experience it, they will most likely imbibe it. That's the hope.
Tristha, this has been an amazing 60 minutes. And I really mean that personally. I don't know if you are wise beyond your years or you look much younger than you are, but whatever it is, the insights and the wisdom is something that I'm very, very impressed with and very inspired by. So thank you for being authentic and so candid and sharing so much with us. I'm sure people enjoyed it as well. There's going to be a recording of this, so I'm sure people are going to come back and watch it. But thank you for sparing the time. I really, all the power to you. And we'll be watching you, and I'm sure you'll be really successful, because there's if the intent and the honest effort is there, and you clearly are driven by that mission and sense of purpose, I'm sure you'll get there. Congratulations for everything you've done so far, and all the very best.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a lovely conversation and so inspiring to talk to someone like you, Pramath, really.
No,
To learn from, and thank you for sparing this time and having me part of this conversation.
We'll be in touch, and I'd love to come and visit you sometime. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you.
So with that, I think we'll end the webinar. But thank you everyone for joining us today, particularly the audience. And we seem to have an international audience today. So we hope to see you back again on these campus Charcha sessions, which usually happen on Thursdays, every alternate Thursday. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Tristha.
Thank you.